TV,
on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GBNews,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick. Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Offence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
I'm Andrew Doyle. In a moment, it'll be time for Headliners, where I'll be taking you through Tuesday's newspapers with two fantastic comedians. They've really made an effort. Nick Dixon's got a suit on. Anyway, before then, we've got the news headlines with Polly Middlehurst.
Andrew, thank you. And the top story tonight, Liverpool Football Club have accused the French authorities of trying to deflect responsibility for the chaotic scenes at the Champions League final in Paris on Saturday. UEFA has launched an independent investigation into potential mass ticket fraud and the use of tear gas and pepper spray against Liverpool fans. More than half of the 29 people arrested outside the stadium were British. Ukraine's president has criticised EU countries for failing to agree on a proposed ban on Russian oil imports. Hungary, which is heavily reliant on Russian oil, accused the EU Commission of not consulting properly on proposals. The EU has rolled out 5 packages of sanctions, but failed to agree on the 6th, an oil ban, as so many countries are so dependent. President Zelensky has said EU leaders are too soft on Moscow.
I am grateful to everyone who is pushing for the 6th sanctions package and trying to make it effective. However, unfortunately, for some reason, it isn't there yet. Why do you depend on Russia and not vice versa? Russia must depend on you. Why can Russia still earn almost €1 billion a day by selling energy resources? Why are the banks of a terrorist state still working with Europe and the global financial system?
The sale of Chelsea Football Club has gone ahead today. It's officially completed at £4.25 billion. A consortium group led by LA Dodgers co-owner Todd Boehly bought the club. It ends Roman Abramovich's 19-year ownership after he was sanctioned by the British government for his connections to Vladimir Putin. The Culture Secretary Nadine Dorries has said the sale proceeds will be frozen and can only be used with government approval. A former Conservative minister and Attorney General has joined a number of MPs calling for Boris Johnson to resign. Jeremy Wright said Partygate had caused real and lasting damage to the government's authority. Backbench MP Elliot Colburn is the latest MP to submit a letter of no confidence in the Prime Minister. And a third Tory MP, Nicky Aiken, has said the Prime Minister should submit himself to a confidence vote to end what she's calling speculation over his future. A further 71 cases of monkeypox have been confirmed in England, the UK Health Security Agency says. That brings the total number of UK cases in the past 4 weeks to 179. Scotland has 4 confirmed cases, with 2 in Northern Ireland and 1 case in Wales. And the women's online fashion brand Missguided has fallen into administration. Teneo Financial Advisory have been appointed following a petition by clothing suppliers who are owed millions of pounds. Teneo say the company will continue to trade until a buyer is found. You're up to date on TV, online and on your radio via DAB+. You're with GB News, and now it's time for Headliners.
Thank you, Polly. Hello and welcome to Headliners. I'm Andrew Doyle, and joining me tonight we have the pleasure of the urbane, sophisticated and multi-talented Diane Spencer. And it's Nick Dixon. How are you both? Now, look, Nick, you have made an effort, haven't you? You look very sharp today. I think it's because Diane's looking particularly sharp.
Because I got dissed for wearing my black T-shirt all the time, which I was wearing out of a kind of, comfort.
It's too cash. It's too cash for the news. It means that the viewer doesn't trust your judgment.
Yeah, but whatever I do, I still get insulted in the intros. Have you noticed that? That's going straight to HR.
Only because you're so robust. How are you, Diane?
Oh, I'm grand, thank you. I had my wedding anniversary at the weekend.
Did you?
I did.
Am I allowed to ask how long it's been?
6 glorious years.
Wonderful. Still going okay?
Oh, my God, it's amazing.
You're still in the sweet spot. It's after 10 that it starts to decline.
Well, she could have meant 6 glorious years and, 2 OK ones.
She could have done. She wasn't specific, to be fair. Anyway, let's go through tomorrow's newspaper headlines. These are the front covers. We're going to start with the Daily Mail, which has "Save us from the £100 tank of fuel, Rishi." And this, of course, is the rising fuel prices, not helped by a certain conflict overseas. Then we're going to move on to the Daily Telegraph there. "Police leave 999 callers hanging. All forces but one missed targets to answer phones in 10 seconds in the wake of the pandemic." On to the Independent now. "Families struggle as food prices rise, up by 50%. We're going to be covering that later on, but that's more on the cost of living crisis. There's always also an image there of some of the travel misery for the thousands of people stranded at Heathrow. Not a good time to go on holiday. Then The Guardian, "PM's sudden lurch to right fuels anger of Tory rebels." That's an odd one, isn't it? I would have thought the windfall tax is rather a left-wing move, but nevertheless, we're going to be exploring that in a bit as well. On to the FT now. The Financial Times has "Qualcomm seeks arm investment alongside rivals to spur neutrality." I'm going to be absolutely honest, I have no idea what that means. We're going to move on to the Times now. "Getaways at risk as chaos blames on airline cuts. Ministers condemn unacceptable delays." The Sun now, Andy Carroll back on the front cover. We can't get him off it at the moment. Andy Carroll didn't score, apparently. Well, that's not what I've heard. Anyway, let's move on to the Metro. "Wish we weren't here. It's half-term holiday chaos with airports in meltdown." I hope you're not stuck in the middle of any of that. Those are your front covers. So let's get straight into it, shall we? Nick, you've got some information about Tuesday's Guardian, and maybe this is a good time to go on the Atkins. What do you think?
Well, yes, it's perfect for me because I'm on calorie restriction, but let's not make light of it because it's a very serious story. Pasta, bread and crisps among biggest UK budget food price increases. So the Office for National Statistics has worked out that these basic food items are rising far higher than the rate of inflation. So the pasta jumped 50%, crisps up 17%, bread 16%, minced beef 16, rice 50. You think it'd be flour or something that we raise, and there's probably some sort of bad joke I could make there. But it's about the point is it's very hard to survive on a budget because all basic goods are going up.
Well, this is the point, isn't it? All of this stuff always seems to hit the poor.
Yeah.
Again and again. And why is it that the lowest cost goods are the ones that are subject to the highest rise? That doesn't make sense.
Well, what's interesting is that potatoes are falling.
Right.
So grab your potatoes now, they're down by 14%. However, crisps up.
Right.
Right?
That doesn't make sense.
Well, it does, because if you think about it, crisps also require carbon dioxide, don't they? They require that to go inside the crisp packet, and of course we know there has been a massive kind of global shortage with that.
Yes.
So it's all about all the different things that go into making the product. But you're right, it's disproportionately affecting poor people.
Well, it is. I mean, who was the minister who recently got in trouble for suggesting that there's a way to live on a very small budget? And he was talking about precisely these kind of things, pastas and potatoes and big bags of rice that you could get, but apparently not, because they're being hit by inflation more than anything.
Yeah, the Tory MP, he'd actually come from quite a poor background. He got in trouble because he was saying you can make your own meals with fresh ingredients. Other people are saying you can't. Yeah. And that's what this sort of implies. I mean, it's still probably cheaper than fast food, I suppose, but it's by no means cheap.
Yeah, no.
Is it Lee something?
It was Lee something, yes.
Yeah.
I'm getting a Lee. He's northern. He likes
Let's just leave it at Lee. I think people will know what we're talking about. That's rigorous journalism for you.
I know him as Lee because we're both from the north.
Oh, right.
So we call each other first.
I would suggest that we don't invoke politicians unless we know their full name, because it makes us look a bit ill-informed.
You don't think we should put a glass upside down on the table and wait for it to move?
I know you want this show to be a séance, Diane, but we're not going into your dark, occult ways.
The problem is, Andrew, and we've got a story about this later, but they're just going to use this to try and make you eat bugs.
We are going to talk about that later. I'm being told that it's actually Lee Anderson, so your psychic intuition wasn't working. Anyway, let's move on now. Tuesday's Express next. And while Boris Johnson has been focused on pounds and ounces, perhaps he should have been keeping an eye on pounds and dollars.
Yeah.
Diane?
Well, according to the Express, the sterling's fall from grace. British pound faces existential crisis.
Blimey, that sounds serious.
Oh, it's massively serious. The pound, she doesn't know what to do with herself.
No.
She's having a midlife crisis. She's thinking, do I get a boob job? Do I turn up to pick up the kids from school with bunches in my hair? She's lost her mind.
What's actually happening here?
Well, what's happened is that we have got back one of our favourite characters from Pandemic 1. We've got back Rishi lockdown version. So we've got Lockdown Rishi. And Lockdown Rishi, he just makes it rain all the time.
Yes.
And he's like, hey, guys, 37 billion for the budget. Woo!
Well, I mean, they're saying here that actually the pound is really what but they're saying it's the third worst performing global currency this year. Are you suggesting it's because that Rishi has been a bit too lax? They've been printing too much money.
Well, yeah, well, the whole kind of crux of this article is that you've got a discombobulation between sort of Rishi there sort of splashing the cash and making it rain, and the Bank of England, instead of kind of coming down hard, it can't rein in the inflation because Rishi is just pumping money out there to try and compensate for all these fuel prices.
Yes.
And the bank can't contain it.
Is this not inevitable, though, Nick? I mean, we are in a global recession, aren't we? So this is not something that we can necessarily do all that much about.
Yeah, it's not clear to me as a non-financial expert if it was to do with global forces, if it was to do with the pandemic lockdown spending, as Diane said. I do notice there's a sort of war on between the government and the Bank of England. People I know at the Bank of England hate this government. They cite their incompetence, and the government has little stabs back at the Bank of England. Or in this case, it's the Bank of America citing the increasingly challenging Bank of England communication. And I do know Andrew Bailey apparently is quite an impressive and serious person from people I know who've worked with him, but he did say that he was helpless against inflation, which worried me the other day. Because that's it's kind of their job, isn't it? But I don't want to diss them too much because,
Yeah, goodness, you know people who've worked with Andrew Bailey and you know people who've worked at the Bank of England. You're very well connected.
Well, yeah, that's why I'm sort of careful about how I talk about them, because I know they work very hard.
Yes, of course.
Even though ideologically I'm probably against them in some way.
Let's move on to Tuesday's Times, where something we've never before heard on this show, Boris has been asked to resign. This is brand new. Brand new information.
Yes.
Except that everyone's been asking him to resign over the past few weeks.
Yeah, there's been a lot of it. This one comes from former Attorney General Jeremy Wright, who is the MP for Kenilworth and Southern. And he's written this long statement about why Boris should resign, and I've read it so you don't have to. We should say first, he is a Remainer. He was, as I understand, sacked in Boris Johnson's first cabinet. So
he's got a grudge.
There has been talk of that, Andrew, amongst some media channels. So basically what he does, he goes, it's a very long, and I'll give you the highlights from it, because I've actually got it printed out. He talked about Sue Gray, and he said there's nothing in the report to make him change his mind that Boris could have genuinely and reasonably believed he didn't break the rules. So he's sticking with that. He's saying there's nothing to suggest that. However, he does say that he was negligent, and that's quite important. He also says that He doesn't think people would be behaving like this if they seriously thought the Prime Minister would have a big problem with it. So he's suggesting that Boris set the culture.
Well, that's also come out of the Sue Gray report, though, let's be fair. I mean, the Sue Gray report did conclude that the tone has to be set by the leader, right?
Yeah.
So, you know, she has levelled the responsibility squarely at Johnson. So it's not unreasonable, is it, for him to do the same?
Right. He says, I find it inconceivable that senior officials and advisers would have tolerated, facilitated and even encouraged the breaking of COVID rules if they believed the Prime Minister would have been horrified and outraged by that. So, but the interesting part, those are the kind of slightly, to me, the less interesting parts. Where it gets interesting is that his concern, he claims, is that he's worried this will undermine authority in the government in future, and that's why he says he has to go. He says, I fear these events have done real and lasting damage to the reputation, not just of this government, but the institutions and authority of government more generally.
Yes.
And he talks about it's of fundamental importance that when the government basically has to ask people to do things in the greater good again, so-called, that they will do it. Now, the strange thing for me is that I sort of want to have a leader who doesn't have the authority to enforce lockdowns. So people on my side kind of like Boris in the sense that he's lost the moral authority to impose a lockdown. I know it's a strange argument.
But you want a leader who is incapable of leading?
Well, call me an anarchist.
I will call you an anarchist. You're an anarchist.
I want to reduce the power of government in general.
You're a very neat anarchist.
Thank you.
Yeah, you
what
are.
You're saying?
You're not dressed sufficiently in a way that an anarchist would.
This is how we look now. We've moved on. But,
you can't see what he's wearing under the table.
Oh, really? Maybe I don't want to.
The point is...
Nick, no, but this is an interesting point, that you're saying that effectively as well, this situation and the Sue Gray report has been spun opportunistically by Johnson's enemies. I mean, you've got here in this article Sir Robert Sims, who's effectively also, you know, saying that he's lost all authority, but he's invoking specifically the windfall tax, saying, I don't like this windfall tax. That's what a left-wing government would do. So people are sort of hooking their various grievances about Johnson onto the Sue Gray report. Am I wrong?
No, you're not wrong at all. I just find it absolutely flabbergasting, really. When the report came out, I loved it. All the pages of it, all the photocopies.
You devoured it.
Oh, I did. I was like sat there, I had my Grazia, my Sue Gray report, my Vogue. I just had a lovely
Jackie
day.
Collins. It's of an ilk, isn't it? So, but tell me this. I mean, I'm confused about this because this article is saying, you know, well, now there have been roughly, 27 MPs calling on him to quit. The Guardian's front cover today is talking about how there are suspicions that they've reached the 54 letters to the 1922 committee that would be required to call a leadership contest. So if that is the case, isn't it the case that Boris Johnson is now on the ropes?
Well, it's exponential growth if it is. If it went from 27 to 54 overnight.
I'm just saying what the Guardian is reporting. They're suggesting that, no, these are just rumours, this is just hearsay.
So is he on the ropes?
Well, we know for sure there's been 22 letters. Right? So, you know, which is quite a lot. You need to get to 54.
Right.
And there are lots of people who are umming and ahhing about whether they submit the letter. To get a single letter isn't a good look for a leader.
For balance, I would say there were letters submitted before. Some people took them back. You know, a few months ago, before the Sue Gray report, some people gave in their letters or talked about it, and some even gave them in and retracted them. I think Andrew Bridgen did that. But I do agree, Andrew. I was talking to Mark the other day on this very show, and he felt, you know, Labour was still unelectable. But I'd looked at those polls from the red wall, the blue wall, and there does seem to be a real anger there about Partygate. I disagree because my anger, I don't disagree, but my anger is always about lockdowns themselves rather than the subsequent hypocrisy of Partygate, while it is annoying. Because I never thought the elites were following any of this rubbish from the start anyway.
You didn't, but you were in a minority. A lot of people are.
But other people are angry about it, and the hypocrisy. And of course, even though Starmer's done it, even though they've all basically been doing it, it's obviously going to fall on this government because they're the ones in charge.
Of course. Well, let's move on now to Tuesday's Times again, and it's time to reverse the brain drain. The UK apparently will take the world's best students instead of them nicking ours. Diane, that sounds all right.
It does sound interesting, doesn't it? I mean, it's part of Priti Patel's brand new travel service. So, new graduate work visa for world's brightest to come to UK. Priti Patel, as we know, she loves moving people around the planet, wherever they're coming from, however they arrive. And she's decided that the graduates from the top 50 overseas universities can apply to come to Britain.
That doesn't sound too bad. You know, highly qualified, motivated, intelligent people. Bring them on board.
Yeah, it does sound great, doesn't it? Yeah. And there's going to be some funny little point system. You know, you get certain points for the way that you arrive, and you have to pay. I mean, what I find interesting is she wants to get the best and the brightest right after they've left uni, right at the start of their careers. Now, for me, that's about a year of sobering up. So,
after university, that's the worst time, really.
They don't have to come with a job already offered, but they come across, they pay £715 for the visa itself. And bear in mind, we're quite a pricey place to live right now, especially with the price of pasta going up. So you've got to be quite a wealthy student, I'd say, to come along.
But this is an interesting story insofar as, when we talk about Priti Patel and her migration policy, there's a lot of people who fling around accusations. They say her policy of rehousing in Rwanda is racist. And that R word is used all the time in this discussion. What's so wrong with a point system where effectively what you do is you assess people who are coming in and you reward those who are the most qualified and the ones who will benefit our economy the most? What's wrong with that?
Now,
I'll come to you, Diane, first, and then...
Well, personally, I don't think that there's anything wrong with that, because I myself have been in a point system before, because I emigrated to New Zealand.
Right.
So I had to prove to them that I was worthy enough to stay. And
you went to New Zealand?
I lived there for 4 years.
Oh, voluntarily?
That's when you were still allowed in, Andrew.
I didn't know about this.
Oh, yes.
OK. And so you had to go through a point system. Do they have a similar point system to Australia?
Yes.
Okay.
And even some of my qualifications weren't recognised.
Ah.
So I think it's just quite interesting, because it means there's more sort of bribery factors for the people who make these lists.
Right.
So you have to get on, like, the Times Higher Education World University list. So I think the people who write that list are going to be taken to some pretty fancy lunches and things like that.
I mean, isn't this, Nick, a lot of people accuse Priti Patel of racism, even though she's from a Ugandan Indian family, and here, clearly, she's inviting people in from abroad. It becomes a very shallow accusation, ultimately, doesn't it?
The racism thing is too silly for me to even address. It's nonsense. I do find it more interesting, the brain drain element, the ethical question that actually Diane Abbott raised of if you're taking the best people from developing countries, is there an ethical question there? Purely in terms of our interests, I see nothing wrong with the point system. My only criticism of this is you'll get a 2-year work visa with a bachelor or master's. And if you have a PhD, you'll get a 3-year visa. But my question is, what are these PhDs in? Because some PhDs are more useful than others. What was your PhD in, Andrew, for example?
English Renaissance poetry. What are you saying? Is that not valuable?
No, you've made
it
sound good, but I wanted to know the full title.
You wanted to know the full title of my doctorate thesis?
Because when you told me it last time, it was
Outsider Epistemology, Discourses of Homophilia in the work of William Shakespeare, Sir Philip Sidney and Richard Barnfield.
So with that, you would get a 3-year visa. Now it's up to the viewers.
How do you think I got this job? When they were advertising for this job, they wanted an expert in Renaissance poetry. What do you think?
Exactly.
So are you a doctor?
Well, technically, but I don't use the title. If you want me to start demanding that you call me Dr. Doyle, we'll do that.
He does.
But I think that's humiliating. So let's
not. Is there a doctor in the studio?
Yes. I'm always nervous about that, though. If someone calls a doctor, I can just help you scan a sonnet. I can't help you with if you have a heart attack or something like that.
Yeah, you can check their iambic pentameter,
I can
not
do that.
Heart rate.
I know my scansion. Look, the thing about this is, though, it is a good thing in a sense to bring the best people over, isn't it? I mean, let's just be fair. That's a good thing, right?
It is a good thing, and it's a great thing to open the country to opportunities, and they can come over and then they can actually transfer their visa into something more long-term if they choose to stay.
Yeah, absolutely.
But what's your view on draining people, the brain drain, Andy, because you're a big lefty? What's your view on taking them from other countries?
Well, no, it's not about taking people from other countries. It's about giving people the opportunity to come here if they want to come here. And your fear that they're going to come over here and do sort of frivolous degrees in dance theory or anything like that isn't founded, because those are kind of very upper middle class bourgeois local theories.
These will be engineers and stuff.
These are people who...
They won't be like you.
They won't be like me. So Tuesday's Guardian have more on the fallout from Saturday's Champions League final. Sounds like the French government are backtracking on whose fault it was. Nick, you have these?
Yes, it can't be the French's fault. So fake tickets on industrial scale...
We like to blame them, though, don't we?
Well, it's going to be a lot of fun in this piece now. I'm going to do that right now. But they're blaming fake tickets on an industrial scale. So France the Interior Minister is saying he regrets the disorganised welcome, which is sort of what you give Jehovah's Witnesses at your door. It's a disorganised welcome. 70% roughly of the tickets presented by Liverpool fans were fake. Some of them apparently just had football ticket written in crayon. That's not true. I added that.
Okay.
For Bants, but it is interesting that it doesn't. All 90% of the Real Madrid fans got into their seat on time, whereas 50% of Liverpool fans didn't, and it is a bit dodgy. It doesn't help towards Liverpool's victim mentality that they already have. That actually they were treated quite badly here. You know what I mean? Because they always have a bit of a victim mentality anyway. It's a bit like me finding out Andrew Doyle actually is plotting against me. You know, it's the last thing you want. So this was So basically, it was a complete mess, and I love this bit. And I'm only joking, Liverpool. I love the people of Liverpool. France had only 3 months to prepare for the game. I mean, That's quite a long time, isn't it? We get a couple of hours before this show, 3 months to prepare a football game in a football stadium. I mean, that's not... They could easily lose a war in that time, the French. Do you know what I mean? That's a long time.
What do you think about this, Diane? Any
I think this is
thoughts?
horrendous mismanagement by the French police. The way that they blockaded the concourse, the reason why those places are designed with massive, huge concourses is to deal with the number of fans. The rail strike didn't help. The French have seriously messed this up. They're blaming the Liverpool fans, and the way that they fired tear gas into the Liverpool fans to maintain the impermeability of the stadium which had already been breached, is just appalling. They went in there looking for a fight.
It's always so extreme.
That is terrible,
football,
that bit. I missed that bit.
Do you know why it is? It's because of the shape of the ball.
It's what?
It's because of the shape of the ball, because the ball is a spherical object. So the logic is when you kick the ball, it goes exactly where you want it to go.
Yes.
In rugby, the ball can bounce wherever, which is why there is no tension and it dissipates.
Yes, but I find that... that's why I can't watch rugby either. It's too unpredictable.
Yeah.
It can go absolutely anywhere.
So you can't get angry about it?
No, that's true. I don't get angry about it. I'm indifferent. That's it for part one. Coming up in part two, angry Scots, bigoted Scots, and Donald Trump Jr. See you in 120 seconds.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you.
And we're only getting started.
Join us on GBNews,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
Welcome back to Headliners with me, Andrew Doyle, and Diane Spencer and Nick Dixon. Let's get straight into it. And Diane, the Express, reporting that not everyone wants to party this Jubilee weekend. Who specifically might they be talking about there?
They're talking about our friends who live up north, up north in the attic. Don't give an F about Jubilee, calls for Scottish Republic grow ahead of bank holiday.
Yes, I mean, there's a lot of tweets that have been quoted in this article of people showing how little they care about the Jubilee by endlessly tweeting about it. There's a lot of that, isn't there? I mean, what do you make of it? Do you think this kind of needlessly antagonistic? What do you think?
I think this is very unfair. The Scottish people, they seem to be combining the whole Scottish Republic, Scottish independence, which is funny considering the SNP said that if they had independence, they'd retain the monarchy, which makes no sense to me. But the Scottish already have bagpipes. They have ceremony. They have kilts of many colours. We have one flag, which we just want to put everywhere, because I'm not including Cornwall and their wish to secede. And it's just so fun to have flags everywhere and celebrate something.
Do you share this, Nick? You're part Scottish, aren't you? For the purposes of this section. just so we can say we've got balance.
Well, I have Scottish cousins, and I'm from the border, Cumbria, obviously. So I'd have probably been historically fighting them in sort of bloody battles. But anyway, this is...
you wouldn't.
I totes would. This is why... You haven't seen my deadlift. This is why England should secede. I mean, as Peter Hitchens said, they're always blaming us. Everyone hates us for being the best. I suffer this in my daily life. But England, they hate us. I mean, I didn't care about the Jubilee until this story. Now I massively care about it in defence of the realm, because this idea...
Nick Dixon, Defender of the Realm.
Thank you.
I think that should be your title.
Thank you. Someone's tweeted here, like, the more I'm reminded of how many people can barely feed, clothe or warm themselves, the more I think the Scottish Republic is the best future. I mean, but they get all their money from us anyway, so that doesn't even add up. We economically keep Scotland afloat.
Let's continue with this theme and go to Tuesday's Telegraph now, which reports that the most persecuted group of people ever are finally going to receive protection. This is the English, well, according to this article. But this is the Anglophobia, right? Anglophobia in Scotland is on the rise. Can this be right?
Exactly. Anglophobia banned on the new Scottish Independence Code of Conduct, because it comes from Stuart Hosey, the senior SNP MP, and he's suggested that you shouldn't be allowed to speak ill of the English amid fears Anglophobia could wreck their dreams of separation. So what this is, they're not doing it for genuine reasons. It's pretending to not hate the English to get a better chance of separating from us. It's kind of like when the archetypal woman in a movie pretends to suddenly be really into the bad guy so she can get away.
So this is just subterfuge. I mean, isn't Anglophobia sort of at the heart of the movement? I mean, and isn't it, is Anglophobia really a thing? Is it hatred of the English? Isn't it a bit more light-hearted than that?
No. Not really. Have you not been up... I remember being up in... I mean, I don't want to diss the Scots. As I said, I've got a Scottish family. I remember being up in the Stand Comedy Club during the height of the kind of referendum time. And it was edgy. If you didn't want to say anything too English, you didn't even really want to open your mouth and come out as all English, because it was a genuine menace.
See, this is funny. So I remember being in Wales once and looking through a bargain basement video. This is back in the day, videos, actual VHS. And one of the videos was a video of Welsh rugby victories against the English. It was a compilation of the best bits when Wales had trounced England. And I thought, that's quite funny. That's quite sweet.
But not to them. That's serious to them.
That didn't strike me as serious. That struck me as endearing and quite nice. Is it not the similar kind of rivalry? No, Diane, you don't agree?
Really not, because just like Nick was, at the height of the referendum, I was also in Scotland, and there were points where I was stood at a bus stop and everybody was talking about it all the time.
Yes.
And the way that I look, I just shut up, because I look very Scottish, and so I could get away with people sort of just chatting around me, and they were properly slagging off the English. And the reason why they're doing this is because they want to capture all the moderate voters that are humming and hawing.
Yeah, this is the key thing, isn't it? That they're suggesting that overt Anglophobia will actually be detrimental to the independence campaign.
Yeah.
Which I suppose strategically that's probably the case. Or it might help if there is this kind of venom that you're describing with it that runs
No, but
through
venom
Scotland.
is not palatable, and it doesn't speak of a government. It doesn't speak of moving forward as a civilised society. Even if you can control your venom and keep it...
The little I know about the Scots is they're not one to control their venom, right? So I don't think the intemperate language is going to change, because let's face it, their temperate language sounds pretty nasty sometimes, doesn't it? So let's just, Go on, Nick.
No, I was just thinking Diane could have easily fit in. Like you said, did you sort of start trying to be Scottish? Like, I can't stand them. And so, joining in...
Oh, did you actually become fully undercover?
Yeah, you could have gone full undercover and done a Scottish accent.
Well, I have been contacted by MI6 on a couple of occasions.
I can well believe it.
I'm not trying to diss... I think we were a bit harsh on Scotland there. Obviously,
I love Scotland.
A lot of Scottish people don't feel like that. They do. A lot of them, our very own Leo Kurtz, want to continue the union. They did vote for it.
They voted to continue the union.
But it's a certain small, nasty group, and what they're saying here is pretend not to be nasty and it'll increase our chances of getting away.
Yeah. OK, well, let's move on to The Sun now. This is a rather sad story, unfortunately, about the football legend Andy Gorham. Are you a fan, Diane?
Well,
Of football?
I am a fan of football, but not a Rangers fan.
Okay.
But I can still appreciate what has happened here.
Yeah.
So Rangers legend Andy Gorham has 6 months left to live after a devastating cancer diagnosis. So what has happened is that the gentleman in question discovered that he had problems swallowing, he had problems eating food.
Yes.
And what I find sort of endearing about this story is we all know somebody who is elderly, who we love very much, who is stubborn. And you say, look, if you're having this trouble, go to the doctor. And they go, no, I'll be fine. I'll just walk it off. It's just my leg that's dropped off. It's all right. It's fine. And you go, no, I think it's a bit more serious than that.
Yes, of course.
But when he finally did go, he had been through a terrible time. Like, it took him 2 weeks to see his GP. And then he'd also lost 4 stone in 4 weeks.
Yes, he was clearly ill. I mean,
clearly very ill.
The key thing about this, of course, is he has said he wants to forego chemotherapy treatment because he would rather have the quality of life rather than the extra 12 weeks that they estimated would give him. So, Nick, do you have any reflections on that?
No, just I remember Andy Gorham as a kid watching football, and it's just very, very sad. That's all I've got.
Well, he was diagnosed with esophageal cancer, and now I just hope he lives his life to the fullest that he can for the next 6 months, because he might as well.
Absolutely. To the Times now, and it turns out nuclear waste might not actually be so wasteful after all, right, Nick?
Yeah, well, it's related to because its nuclear waste could be used to target cancer cells, so from power stations like Sizewell in Suffolk, and it's this thing they've got called lead-212 that can be used as a targeted alpha therapy. So apparently the issue is that it can't decay too quickly. So you've got to have a balance between if the radioactivity if it fades too quickly, you can't get it to be useful because it's already worn off. But if it's too slowly, it leaves a radioactive dose in the patient's body for too long. Now apparently this lead-212 hit what they're calling the sweet spot in between the two, and this is from I just want to get his name right because it's very important. Hannigan, Mr. Hannigan, because I can't find his first name.
You wanted to get it right, so you went for Mr.
Yes, so
Hannigan.
I went with his surname. What I really like is that his team were in Preston as well, near where I'm from. I mean, this is the best thing to come out of Preston. I mean, it's the first good thing, but it's amazing. It's this is a new treatment that could be miraculous, and it's called lead-212.
Well, excellent news. Let's move on, though, to Tuesday's Daily Mail, which discusses the adage, like father, like son. Diane, you have the details.
So Donald Trump Jr. has blamed crazy teachers and drug addict mother, not guns, for the Uvalde school massacre. Donald Trump Jr. has gone into a right-wing social media group called Rumble, and he has reacted. You see, the mother of the shooter said he had his reasons for doing what he did, and please don't judge him.
Yes. So, I would suggest she's, obviously she's grieving and she's got a vested interest in this.
Equally in trauma,
yes. To find out that your son could be capable of such evil as well.
And he's shot his grandmother in the face, and he's killed all these children. It's
unfathomable, actually, isn't it? So her reaction, we wouldn't expect a sensible, level-headed reaction from her at the moment. But it's interesting, isn't it, that Trump, like so many others, whenever we have these shootings, people are always desperately trying to find someone to blame other than the person who did it, right? So we get this time and again, like with Christchurch. You had the massacre in Christchurch, and people were saying it was because of Chelsea Clinton, or it was because of Jordan Peterson's book, or, we had the similar thing with the Anders Breivik, and people saying it was because of Jeremy Clarkson was mentioned in... You know what I mean? Why can't we focus on, the people who did this? Donald Trump's blaming guns, but what about the person who fired the gun?
No, Donald Trump is actually not blaming the guns. Donald Trump...
Who's he blaming? He's blaming the mother.
He's blaming the guy. He's doing exactly what you just said.
No, he's saying the mother. He said, actually, the mother is the problem.
Yes, well, he was saying that it's not just it's a sociopath that's wielding the gun. And he said that we need to fix our own stupidity, apathy, wokeness, laziness. That's the problem.
But that's also doing what I'm describing. That's trying to blame other things. Wokeness, all the rest of it. It's not just saying sometimes there are psychopaths who do terrible things and they are to blame for their actions. Am I wrong about that, Nick?
No, but so Donald Jr. has been a little bit incoherent here, but he is on the right lines in terms of looking to the causes, because what happens is people use this to push their gun control agenda, which I find crass. The idea is it's crass to make a pro-gun argument in the wake of these things, but it's actually crass to push your anti-gun agenda, because that's what you thought anyway, and you're just using this to promote that. What I mean by that is we have to look to the other factors. They nearly always lack father figures, these kids. The mother was a drug addict. This kid was extensively bullied, which doesn't mean what he did was right by any means.
There's a difference between that and saying the mother is to blame.
Yes, but also, if he didn't have access to the guns, then Donald Trump Jr. is saying, oh, well, he would have taken it out, he would have had a machete, he would have had this, he would have had that. But a machete is a close-range weapon. It's a lot easier to stop a machete. This kid had an AR-15, which automatically reloads.
You look at the Westminster van attacks here. We know that you can use any kind of weapon if you want to. We look at America in the past. It always had guns. It didn't always have school shootings. So they're a modern phenomenon. Canada has 2 million guns. Why don't they have these? So you do have to look at the societal reasons behind it rather than just simply say it's the guns. That's all I'm saying. And that is important because there is a reason Americans have the Second Amendment. And so they, of course, want to defend it. And
but the Second Amendment was made when people had a musket, which it took them like a minute to reload. And now they still have the Second Amendment, which is their right to bear arms, but it means that anybody can get a gun that can fire like.
It's a fine line, isn't it, between people who are politicising this tragedy and weaponising it in order to push an agenda, and those who want to actually analyse and consider the circumstances and what we can do to prevent it in the future. Yeah. It is difficult.
Yeah, can I just say, we don't know what the founding fathers had in mind. They were very smart people. They surely assumed technology would increase. But can I also just say, once you get rid of the guns, all that happens is you don't get rid of them. Criminals will still have them. The government still has them. And celebrities still have them to use for things like security. So all that happens is you're taking away guns from ordinary people. Let's say a woman needs to defend herself, but she doesn't have a gun anymore because you've said no more guns for you. But criminals will still have them, and celebrities who talk about gun control will still have bouncers with guns hanging around. It was private security.
But when you say there's a problem when teenagers, school children can get hold of guns, that's a problem.
It's not ideal. You need background checks. Yeah, perhaps there should be an age limit. I don't know enough about the age limits. There should be mental health checks and so on. But I just don't think it works. We always have this outcry. We don't understand it in Europe, and we always go, well, we should ban all the guns. But it's just not that simple.
OK, well, we've run out of time there. That's the end of part 2. Join us for the final section where we discuss kids eating bugs, a woman whose new partner is an aeroplane, I'm not kidding, and we learn some beauty secrets from the Queen. See you in a minute.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
the People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, the comedy panel show that's just like the news, in that the left fights the right and it doesn't really seem to matter who wins. We cover the big stories. It was in fact a troop of baboons and not angry vegans.
I like that.
And the really important stories.
Fat naked cow gets stuck in swimming pool.
It's a headline in a lot of local newspapers. Yeah.
We're on the same team, Nick.
Yeah, but I'm just helping you.
Join us for Ministry of Defence, Saturday nights, 8 o'clock on GB News.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
Welcome back to the home stretch of headliners, where with Diane Spencer and Nick Dixon, it's about to get a little weird. Let's start with the Metro. This has a story, it makes me quite glad I'm a vegetarian.
Yes, absolutely. And can I just quickly say it was Nick Hannigan before, when I forgot the guy's name who's come up with the cancer treatment. It's my own name. That's what makes it even stupider. Shout out to Nick Hannigan. So, yeah, the Metro has kids to explore eating bugs to gauge appetite for alternative protein. This is where it begins. It's the WEF. You will own nothing and you'll be happy, and you'll eat bugs. It's just
So apparently they're very good for you, right? And I am a vegetarian, so I wouldn't do this. But even if I weren't a vegetarian, I'm not going to be eating bugs.
Are you part of the World Economic Forum, Andrew? That's what they'll be saying on Twitter.
They're already saying
Typical
it.
Doyle. See, if people don't know what I'm talking about, the World Economic Forum is always pushing these crazy ideas like you'll own nothing and you'll be happy, you'll live in a cold room eating bugs and so on. I'm paraphrasing. But own nothing and be happy was one of their videos, and lockdowns are good is another thing they said. This is all part of that. Now, it's in Wales, so it hasn't come to England yet, but it's 4 primary schools in Wales. And they've left out in this article, to try and make it sound less gross, that it's actually crickets, grasshoppers, silkworms, mealworms, locusts, if it wasn't biblical enough for you. And this is... look, it's...
So school dinners are bad enough.
Exactly.
But if you're eating mealworm and...
Can I just quickly say, they're trying to justify it in this article, which is in the Metro. They're going, across Europe, eating alternative sources of protein like insects is already the norm. That's why we left, bro. Do you know what I mean? And then...
OK, so just
one more thing. Edible insects are not solely widely in the UK, but they form part of the diet of around 2 billion people worldwide. Yeah, it's called the Third World. Also... how many birds were brought
now,
into that study?
Wait a minute, that's unfair. That's unfair.
No, we don't want to eat bugs, is what I'm saying.
Some countries which are very wealthy eat bugs. They're considered a delicacy. A lot of people do eat... I wouldn't eat them, right, Nick? But I just think the fact that you're dismissing the eating of bugs... What's the difference, really, between eating a bug and eating a cow? It's just a bigger animal.
Well, what...
No, Diane?
Yeah. I mean, kids as well. I think it's kind of funny that they're making kids do it.
They're experimenting on kids first.
They are. They're supposed to read the hungry caterpillar, not eat it.
Thank you.
Do you know what, though? I mean, I don't think it's that bad. I wouldn't personally do it, but I think other people should.
But here's
because it's probably be better for the world. It's good for the environment. It's good for individuals. I wouldn't do it. But I think they should do it. And also, by the way, apparently, according to this article, we're doing it anyway.
Don't.
Yeah,
wait,
I'm going to say it. In every 100-gram bar of chocolate, there are at least 30 pieces of insect already. You're already eating it.
That's the propaganda. Andrew, you're talking about a choice. What's going to happen, though, is you won't have the choice. You'll start off, oh, there's an option. Oh, do you want a grasshopper? It's just an option. We're just feeding it to your kids. Nothing sinister. A few years down the line, you won't be allowed steak. I know you're a vegetarian anyway. But you won't be allowed meat. All you'll be allowed is a grasshopper or Bill Gates' synthetic meat.
So, Nick Dixon there with his usual conspiratorial flair. Let's move on to Tuesday's Times with the sad news that the great British tradition of children trying to sneak into 15 films looks like it's going to come to an end. Diane, I'm gutted about this because, you know, when I was 15, my first 15 was Terminator 2, and I got in at the age of 11 or 12, and I was... It was wonderful.
Yes!
Not going to happen now, apparently.
Which is really sad.
Yeah.
And, Terminator 2 is an epic film because it has Sarah Connor in it.
It does.
And she was one of my heroines growing up, so I'm so pleased.
And ironically, it's about time travel. You travelled forward about 7 years to get in.
I did indeed.
Very good.
Very good. Let's talk about the headline. Let's talk about the story.
So cinemas are using an app to check children are really old enough, and it's to stop them sneaking into X-rated movies. I mean, I'm not sure how many X-rated movies...
We don't do that. We haven't done that since the 80s, have we?
No, I don't think so. I mean,
thing?
If children are sneaking into sort of... Isn't that an explicit film, an X-rated film?
Well, I mean, it might be things like horror films. I mean, I remember also sneaking into Natural Born Killers, the Oliver Stone film, before I was 18. And
well, it's curiosity, isn't it? And you want to see something thrilling and exciting. But so basically, this is rather than using a disguise or like you know how they sort of use a stick sometimes, and they go if you're not taller than the stick,
yes,
you can't get in.
No, that's a fairground ride, isn't it? Normally.
No, they do it on all sorts of things. They do it on a grid walk when you go to the BTCC. So the technology is being tested by the Home Office initially. There's a special app called Yoti, and it's to prevent children from buying alcohol in the supermarkets.
Now, that makes more sense to me, but this is a kind of harmless transgression. Are we, Nick, are we not just taking the fun out of childhood here?
Of course we are. You should be allowed to sneak into a movie, but also, again, I hate to be accused of... I'm going to get confused with conspiracy theories again.
That's
but
your thing.
It says the government has also approved the use of the digital ID to enable young people to access and withdraw money from their child trust funds when they're 18. I mean, how convenient. It's just like the bugs. It's getting kids used to digital ID, cashless society, eating bugs.
Is that not just the advance of technology?
Well, that's what your cronies at the WEF will say, yeah. Klaus Schwab.
Yeah, I owe him a phone call, actually. Anyway,
Dr. Doyle.
Tuesday's Daily Mail proves that if anyone wants to buy my book and not read it, it'll still make you a better person. Now, I think this is a really interesting article, Nick. Do you want to tell us what's happening?
It very much is, Andrew. That's why it's on our interesting show. It's, are you guilty of sundoku, the Japanese term for buying books and never reading them? Now, as you all know, Andrew, Schopenhauer famously said buying books would be a good thing if one could also buy the time to read them, which is a wonderful quote, but you can't. So lots of people are just buying the books, either to have on their shelves in a kind of annoying aesthetic thing, or they intend to read them, they believe they're going to read them, and then they don't, basically.
Isn't this due to the rise of Zoom, though? And so people curate their backgrounds on Zoom.
They do.
And my dad even won a golf trophy at his local golf club, and my mum purposefully put it on the bookshelf, and she said, well, this is what they all do on the Zooms.
Yeah, there was even a Twitter account that was mocking celebrities for whenever they were having these Zoom interviews on TV, they had these books, all these books in the background which they probably hadn't read. But I actually think it's really good. I think this is an interesting thing, because I don't buy a book unless I know I'm going to read it. And if I have a book on my shelf for too long and I haven't read it, I get rid of it. I just don't. I think it's. But on the other hand, it's very good to have lots of books in the house. It's very good for kids because children explore and they find ideas that way. And I think that's wonderful. And I do think aesthetically, a room full of books looks great.
It's also very good for bookshops. I used to work in the Great Foyles bookshop and other bookshops, and it's great because we'll keep them in business. But I do, you know, I've actually read too many books. I'm the opposite. I've read all my books. I've read too many. It was a bit of a waste of time. The only thing is it's meant my vocabulary is the goodest of everyone I know. But other than that...
That's why you're quoting Schopenhauer on the show.
Exactly. I sometimes wondered, I've read so many fiction books. Was it a waste of time? I'm not totally sure. You've probably read quite a few books, haven't you?
I've read a few books. What are you reading at the moment?
No, I've stopped. Now I've stopped reading.
You've stopped reading?
I just read news articles for shows like this. I watch YouTube, and I've completely stopped reading. I listen to Audible. I can't even read anymore. I just listen to Audible.
Well, that's not good, is it? No. I think that's devolution.
But I've read them all already.
No, I don't think it's such a bad thing. I have my bookshelf is all ordered in terms of category. So I have all my screenwriting books. I have all my social science books. I have a lot of.
This doesn't surprise me that your bookshelf is like really nerdily organised. Mine's the same. Mine's the same.
No, it's not that much of a surprise. Look, we must move on. Art historians have debated for centuries why the Mona Lisa is smiling. The Telegraph has a story that it might be because she likes cake. What do you think, Diane?
So the Mona Lisa has survived a cake attack by an environmental activist disguised as a granny.
This is becoming so common, this kind of attack. It's out of control.
It's ridiculous. It's such a trend. So this person pretended to be disabled, wearing a black wig and a granny. And, of course, the Mona Lisa, right, this protest was apparently about... about the state of the planet.
Yes.
It's a very incoherent... It's like a Lady Gaga version of a protest.
Yeah.
And this person, he went and basically stood up and threw a lump of cake at the Mona Lisa, which thankfully was behind a glass screen, and then he started sprinkling rose petals everywhere. I hear next week he's going to throw jelly at the pyramids.
Well, this just sounds like an avant-garde performance piece. You know, we can actually see it there now. The cakes. But the thing about
this is... It's a bit like Jack Nicholson's Joker in the first Batman movie.
Yes, when he goes around to the Prince soundtrack.
That's the only thing I like about it.
So, I mean, what I find... I hate the idea of desecrating art and the people who do it. I find it like complete philistinism.
Absolutely.
But this is, you know, you could never damage the Mona Lisa. It's behind this thick, bulletproof glass. What I hate about going to the Louvre and seeing that painting is you can't see the painting because it's surrounded by people taking photographs of it on their mobile phones. It's really, really annoying. I think they should just clear those people out and let proper art lovers in. Sorry, that's my rant.
No,
and
you're right.
maybe that's what the cake guy was protesting
also,
about.
not only was this guy French, and he was a classic climate activist with a... I'm not saying they're all dumb, but he said, think about the Earth. There are people destroying the Earth. That's why I did it. Think about the planet.
Well, wait a minute. We are talking about it, aren't we? We are repeating
but what's
the
the link
lines
between that and throwing cake at a painting?
It's got nothing to do with it.
It does. The Mona Lisa is a painting of a woman who never, ever recycled.
OK.
Could be that. Diane to the rescue. OK, so is cake one of the reasons why the Queen is looking so good, Nick? What does Tuesday's Times have to say about this?
It's the real reason why the Queen has such beautiful skin at 96. Now, we might speculate, doesn't have a real job, stays indoors a lot, can afford any skin product. I would never say that, because we're on GB and we love the Queen. But, of course, actually, I'm not actually that far off, because... Although it does prove, by the way, she's not a lizard, because they have famously leathery skin. So that's good to get out of the way.
Although it is durable, the lizard skin.
OK, so it's back on the table from Dr. Doyle. But I'm actually not far off, because some of the reasons they cite are the fresh Balmoral air gives good glow, so you're out in a garden rather than a dehydrating office. Her skin is protected with a proper base. They don't mean a military base, so that's also true. They mean a foundation. She shields herself from the sun. She's not too stressed because of the whole, you know, being really rich and the Queen thing. And her makeup apparently helps. And this one is a bit tenuous. She values family above all else. Didn't quite get that one.
Can I tell you, this story only goes to prove that no matter how powerful you are going to be judged on how you look as a woman, because she is the Queen of England and we're talking about her skin. And it makes me absolutely livid.
They're being quite complimentary, though, aren't they?
No, yes, but it's patronising.
Is it a man or a woman who's done this? Is it a man or a woman?
She's a queen. It shouldn't matter what she looks like.
I mean, the thing about this is, though, is I mean, look, but I don't.
Queen of skincare.
I don't know if... No, you're right. You're absolutely right. It doesn't matter what she looks like. I agree with you.
Do you know what? A couple of years ago, if she was the wrong queen, her head would have been in a basket. Oh, she makes this basket look so young and fresh. Does my basket make me look fat?
I mean,
don't you think that's an improvement,
This is a better scenario. But isn't it just, you know, isn't it just like, oh, is anyone surprised that very, very wealthy people look good?
I'm not surprised at all.
No. Anyway, let's move on now to a story about Frank Skinner in Tuesday's Times.
So this is fun. So, Frank Skinner said, I was a racist, sexist, homophobe, Frank Skinner tells Festival. I said that twice because I don't want anybody cutting that out.
No.
And making it sound like I'm
also,
saying
he
that.
specifically said the past tense. He was.
When
he was growing up in the 60s and 70s in the West Midlands. Well, I'd be surprised if he wasn't. You know, this is like times have changed. You know, is that not right? We've moved on. People no longer use casually homophobic language,
which is good. And this was said at the Hay Festival, and I think it was because I don't know. Hey, I used to be a racist. Hey!
Well, I mean, they were talking about progress, weren't they? And he was talking about his children, how he thinks the future is going to be so much better because the children are so much more tolerant and all the rest of it. And Stephen Fry was there saying he thinks the country isn't at all tolerant. And I can't help thinking, where is more tolerant than the UK? Because I can't think of a country that is.
I'm kind of calling this old white men get things off their chests.
But there were women present, Diane.
No, I'm just saying this article is just highlighting these two dudes.
Can I say the bit that really annoyed me?
Go on, Nick.
It was not the Frank Skinner bit, which was whatever. It was Stephen Fry saying, our world as white people is such a blissfully easy swim. Yes, if you're really posh.
Yeah.
My grandparents grew up in abject poverty in this country, like Dickensian-level poverty. By the way, Douglas Murray points out in his recent book, a Lancashire factory worker, where half my family are from, had at the time of the Industrial Revolution, half the life expectancy of a slave. So it wasn't great times for all white people, but you get posh white people saying this and throwing us all under the bus, and I can't stand it.
You don't normally get working-class white people saying how great it is to be white, but let's just move on because we haven't got much time. This is Tuesday's Mirror now with a woman who has a particular taste in men. Not even men, Nick.
I mean, amazingly, this is not the Daily Star. Woman sexually attracted to objects announces she's in a relationship with a plane. This is Sarah Rodo, 23, who identifies as objectum sexual, which means she's attracted to inanimate objects, and she feels an overwhelming love towards the passenger plane that she now refers to as her boyfriend.
What is this all about?
She's from Germany.
She's describing herself as objectum sexual. Objectum sexual. How many more sexualities are going to... Isn't it just someone who's desperate for attention?
She looks kind of like you'd expect. I mean, she's got the shaved head and the glasses. No offence. She's got 50 replica models that sleep in her bed. And
they don't sleep.
She wants to marry it. She wants to marry the plane, but German law won't allow it. She says, my plane is called Dickie, and he takes up almost my entire bed. Can't comment me on that within broadcast regulations.
No, you can't.
But that's what... I love this. She's also had 2 relationships with men, but she switched to plane. How bad were these men that she switched to model planes?
Diane, who cares? If you want to sleep with a model plane in your bed, who cares? Why is that newsworthy? I don't care what you do.
I don't care, and I'm glad it's not legal for her to marry an object.
Yep. You do care.
Well said, well said. We quickly have time for Tuesday's Mail on why you should always check your partner's pockets, Diane.
So a woman has claimed she found a receipt for Viagra in her partner's coat pocket, and she claimed he stayed out late with pals, and he said, no, I bought the Viagra because I've got diabetes, and so I'm having trouble having erections, as you know, my darling, my angel, my muse, my flame. And she went... Yeah, but you've not been using the Viagra with me,
so people are suggesting he's cheating. But to be fair, she went through his Apple Pay receipts and then found the receipt, went through his coat pockets.
Yeah.
You know, if you don't want to know...
There's no trust.
Don't look. That's surely the moral of that story.
That's always worked for Andrew.
It's always worked. That's all we've got time for. So thank you to my guests, Nick Dixon and Diane Spencer. And please do join us again tomorrow. We'll have more wonderful stories. See you then. Farewell.
I'm Dan Wootton. Join me Monday to Thursday from 9 to 11 for the feistiest and most fun news debate on TV, where free speech reigns. I'll bring you a sharp take on the day's biggest stories, bombshell newsmaker interviews, and A-list guests. And I guarantee you, no spin, no bias, no censorship, and no reason to go to bed. That's Dan Wootton Tonight, Monday to Thursdays from 9 on GB News.
My name's Tom Harwood, and every weekday we bring you The Briefing live from 9:30 a.m. The stories, analysis, and live debate that you need to hear.
Quite right, Tom, of course.
Was this something that had been considered at all?
Difficult to answer.
Gas-guzzling helicopters circling. Noise is being made here.
Joe Biden walking out. Thank you very much for joining us. Don't miss it. The Briefing with me, Tom Harwood, Monday to Friday, 9:30 a.m. on GB News.
We are GB News.
We're right across this great nation.
On TV, on radio, on digital.
Absolutely everywhere.
We don't talk down to you.
We embrace all voices.
With honest and civilised conversation.
We're not part of the establishment.
We're one of you. And we're only getting started.
Join us on GB News,
The People's Channel.
Britain's news channel.
Every morning from 6 o'clock, we'll wake you up with GB News Breakfast with all the stories you didn't know from the night before.
So whether it's serious news, entertainment, or your own views from all over our great nation, we're here to kick off your day with a smile.
The national media should be reflecting and reporting what's happening here.
You will notice the northwestern accents.
Whether you're with us on TV, radio, or online, every morning, it's breakfast from 6 a.m. Hope you can join us.